Holy shit! I just watched the first 3 episodes of Captain Earth. Now, this is the only show that I went into this season actually aware of, and was pretty excited about, just on the basis of the show's pedigree. This show comes from the exact same team that made Star Driver, which is to say, Studio Bones, writer Enokido Yoji, and director guy whose name I don't remember, but he did Uran High School Host Club, Soul Eater, and both he and the writer worked on Revolutionary Girl Utena. Now, I definitely consider Utena to be one of, if not outright the most seminal anime series ever created. And Enokido Yoji has had an impressive career. He was one of the writers on Neon Genesis Evangelion. He wrote FLCL, which is one of my favorite shows. He wrote Star Driver, as I mentioned before. He's written a lot of great shows. He's worked on a lot of great shows. The director has as well. I have a huge post that me and my mentor Ghost Lightning composed on his old blog, where we talked about the entire lineage of everyone who worked on Utena and all the shows that they worked on. So check that post out in the description if you want to learn a lot more about the people behind this show. But for now, we're just going to talk about Captain Earth. Now, the first thing that's plainly evident to me is that this show is very different from pretty much everything Enokido has worked on, just in the fact that it's not nearly as stylized. All of his previous works have been extremely oozing with style. No matter who was the director or what series it was, everything Enokido's worked on has been hyper stylized. Captain Earth is probably the most tame series that this dude has ever written for, both in terms of writing and general production. I won't say ever wrote for because he might have done some kids shows, but anyway, you know what I mean. The first episode of Captain Earth has almost movie theater quality animation and visuals. It was gorgeous to look at every second of the way through. I was just really impressed with it. Quality kind of degrades a lot by episode 3, where it just looks more like a normal TV show. There's a lot more animation errors, but I mean, it's forgivable. It still looks really good. Altogether, it's a gorgeous show. It's Bones at the top of their game, which is a great place to be, because Bones is easily one of the best animation studios out there, and have consistently made shows of this quality before. The first episode of Captain Earth, to me, felt very tame. And I don't just mean in comparison to Star Driver or other Enokido Yoji shows, or even just in comparison to the other works of this director, like Soul Eater and Uran High School Host Club. Those shows really grabbed me and had like an immediate, this is why this show is interesting, like right off the bat. And even just generally other Bones shows, like Eureka 7, have much more evident quality of why you want to watch it. Captain Earth just felt kind of distant in its opening episode. I mean, there was clearly a lot of intrigue, a lot of mystery, things that make me go, huh, I wonder what that's about. Or just little things that spark, you know, an interest, but at the same time, I didn't get a sense of what is this show going to be about, and I still don't feel like I have it. If you look at the eye catches and stuff, there's like this phrase that's like under the show's title that's like, when I opened the door called truth, my childhood ended, and it's a summer that I'll never forget. Clearly that suggests a coming-of-age theme, which this writer has done a lot of. FLCL was arguably like a reverse coming-of-age story. Revolutionary Girl Utena was a coming-of-age story. I don't know if I can call Star Driver one, but it's like that. This episode, it suggests that it's gonna be that, but then it doesn't feel like it. Like, it doesn't feel like a coming-of-age story. The main character is, in the first episode, he seemed like he was questioning where he was going in life, what he's planning to do. But then, in episode 2 and 3, we never see those concerns really pop up again. And episode 2 still largely focuses on the main character, but it almost changes his characterization, where in episode 1 he seems more standoffish, and when we look into his past, he seems like a more energetic, involved kid, but as he's grown up, he's become a little bit more jaded. But then in episode 2, he feels as energetic and involved as he did in his childhood, and he doesn't seem nearly as standoffish. So I don't really have a clear sense of who this kid is yet, and episode 3 almost has no focus on him, really. Then there's these 2 kids who the main character met when he was a kid, and now he's like becoming friends with them again. They're the people who work for this organization that he ends up working for, that he's like piloting giant robots for and shit. And these 2 kids have shown no personality whatsoever. I mean, I'm sure there's a mystery to unravel, but they both feel like Rei at the start of Evangelion, where you don't know anything about her, so you're like, whatever. But Rei was like immediately made me go, oh man, what's up with this girl? Because it showed her, you know, all bandaged up, and she was like immediately interesting. And then as she gets developed, you keep having more questions. These two kids, I'm just like, well, I don't care, because they have given me nothing interesting. The one kid who kind of acts like Kaoru from Evangelion, with the purple hair, he's okay. He had some interesting stuff when he was a kid, but as an adult, he has been completely a blank slate. The girl has been a blank slate. So those two are not offering anything really to the show. Episode 3 was the first time that I felt like there was a spark of life in this show, when the orange hair girl shows up and she was, you know, she's way more energetic, she's more funny. The show had been so straight-faced, like there was no humor really at all, except for like 1 or 2 little gags, until this girl showed up and had like way more life to her. And then she also brings out interesting character in the guy who's like the commander of the team that the main character is working for now. And like now he's interesting too. So him and his daughter are both interesting, but they're the only interesting characters so far. And the show's, I mean, in its defense, it's been introducing tons of concepts. There's a lot of characters, a lot of factions it's trying to introduce, a lot of concepts, and the show is clearly taking its time. It's not trying to rush you through or confuse you too much. It's just like, all right, let's slowly plot this out, let you grasp things at your own pace. And I think it works. Like, I don't feel even slightly lost, even though there's so much going on. Whereas in a show like Star Driver, you spend the first 3 episodes going, what's happening? So maybe they just wanted to slow it down. I mean, maybe the show is going to have a lot of intrigue as it goes. It's only 3 episodes. And with a show like Star Driver, you know, 3 episodes, oh, I felt already really engaged. But that doesn't mean that this show can't eventually reach that level. It's just going at a slower pace. So another thing that Enokido Yoji as a writer is known for is strong sexual imagery. All of his writing has just oozes with sexuality. Revolutionary Girl Utena probably was the pinnacle of like sexuality in anime, period. It was constant, just flooding out of every aspect of the show, and Star Driver was just as bad. And he did Melody of Oblivion, which was highly sexual. FLCL is highly sexual, and interestingly enough, with FLCL, the director who actually came up with most of the show said that the writer Enokido Yoji was the one who came up with like all the sexual stuff. He was like, that's all him. I wasn't even involved with that. So it's like his signature at this point. And Captain Earth has significantly less of it, but it's definitely there, especially during the fight scene in episode 2. You just can't mistake the fact that there's a lot of phallic imagery, and the phrasing they use will be like, you know, like the main character has this gun that's like very phallically shaped. You know, he inserts it into the hole in his mech, and then when the mechs turn on, like, the enemies will plug this big plug into the mech, and they call it libido drive or something like that, which libido was also the power fuel source in Star Driver. They're asking the main character at one part, oh, do you feel like you're in control, or is it controlling you? And he's like, no, I feel like it's a tool that I'm using. It feels like he's talking about his dick, or like that this is like some kind of sexual metaphor. When he gets it, like when he attacks the enemy, he's kind of like, oh, I got it in, is like almost what he says about punching her. And then the other girl's like, no, wait, you have to do this, and like shoots a beam and ejaculation metaphor. I mean, it's not so prominent that I even expect people to notice it, really. Like, it's so much less so that I kind of think I wouldn't have noticed it if I wasn't looking for it. Like, the fact that I know the writer, I know his past work, so I'm thinking, okay, this is a giant sex metaphor. And anyone who is watching this show with an eye for that is going to notice it. But I could honestly see people not getting it if they didn't know about it, just because the rest of the show is so dry in that regard. Like, that fight scene is the only heavily sexually charged scene in the show, and the rest of it has just been normal. So, I don't know. Altogether, Captain Earth has me interested, but not captivated. And that's worrying, because this writer's work usually has me captivated from the get-go. Any of his other works I could name pretty much had that effect, except maybe Melody of Oblivion, but that's just because that show's kind of shit. But again, I'm gonna keep watching it. I mean, it's still interesting. It's still gorgeous to look at. It's still a Bones show written by Enokido Yoji, so I'm going to at least find out what it's like. You know, I'm going to be in unless it proves to be so uninteresting that I end up dropping it. But I don't really see that happening, and hopefully there's a lot more going on that will pique my interest as it goes along. So, yeah, this is a slow burner. To be 3 episodes in and still feel like I have learned nothing, not really the kind of pacing that I prefer, because I like fast-paced shows, but I'm willing to, you know, to work with it. So, check it out if you're interested, and bye!